Hi friends, welcome to the channel, and today we will discuss the topic the rise of Islam in Georgia. The rise of Islam in Georgia is a historical process that intertwines the religious, political, and cultural narratives of the South Caucasus region. Situated at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, Georgia has long been a melting pot of civilizations, faiths, and empires. From the early Christianization of the Georgian kingdoms to the spread of Islam through conquest, trade, and diplomacy, the narrative of Islam's development in Georgia reveals much about the complex interactions between empire and resistance, coexistence and conflict, and tradition and transformation. Islam first touched the Georgian territories during the early Islamic conquests in the 7th century. After the death of the Prophet Muhammad in 632 CE, the Rashidun Caliphate began expanding rapidly. Within decades, the Arab Muslim armies had swept through the Middle East, defeating the Sassanid Persian Empire and threatening the Byzantine Empire. It was during this era that Arab forces ventured into the Caucasus. The Arabs referred to the region as Al-Qaza, encompassing the lands of what are now Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. Their motivations were both strategic and ideological: to spread Islam and to secure control over the lucrative trade routes and key geopolitical terrain. Georgia at this time was not a unified state but a mosaic of kingdoms and principalities. Chief among them were the Kingdom of Iberia, Kartli, in eastern Georgia, and the Kingdom of Lazica, Egrisi, in the west. These regions had fluctuated between Persian and Byzantine suzerainty for centuries. When the Arabs arrived, they encountered resistance but also opportunities to integrate into the existing power dynamics. The first major Arab invasions began in the 640s under the Rashidun Caliphate and intensified under the Umayyads. Tbilisi, then a growing and strategically important city in Kartli, became one of the early focal points of Islamic expansion. In 645, Arab forces entered eastern Georgia and began to establish military and administrative control. Tbilisi soon emerged as a regional center of Arab power. The city of Tbilisi would become the seat of the Emirate of Tbilisi by the late 8th century. This emirate represented the formal institutionalization of Islamic rule in the heart of Georgian territory. Though the emirs were technically vassals of the caliph in Baghdad, their practical autonomy allowed them to administer the city and surrounding areas, collect taxes, and maintain order. Under Arab rule, Tbilisi experienced a degree of urban and economic growth. Islamic architecture, culture, and religious practices began to appear, coexisting alongside the native Christian traditions of the local population. Arabic became a language of administration and learning, and some elements of Islamic legal and social customs influenced the region. However, the rise of Islam in Georgia was not a smooth or uncontested process. The mountainous and often inaccessible terrain of Georgia, coupled with strong Christian identity, ensured that Islamic rule remained limited geographically and was often challenged. The Georgian church played a central role in preserving cultural and religious continuity. Monasteries and churches continued to operate, and Georgian nobles frequently revolted against Arab rule. From the 9th to the 11th century, a series of Christian Georgian kingdoms, particularly the Kingdom of Abkhazia and the Bagratid dynasty of Tauklageti, gained strength and began to push back against the Muslim emirs. These kingdoms not only reclaimed territory but also reasserted Christian dominance over public life. The decline of the Abbasid Caliphate in the 10th century weakened the position of Arab emirs in Georgia. By 1122, under the leadership of King David IV, also known as David the Builder, the Georgians successfully captured Tbilisi and incorporated it into a resurgent Georgian kingdom. David IV relocated the capital to Tbilisi, which now began a new chapter as the capital of a powerful Christian monarchy. Despite the fall of the emirate, the Muslim community of Tbilisi remained a vital part of the city's fabric. Many Muslims stayed, their mosques continued to function, and some of them rose to positions of prominence within the new regime. This period marked a significant moment of coexistence, as the Christian Georgian state accommodated Islamic communities within a larger framework of religious plurality. The Mongol invasions of the 13th century marked another turning point. After the fragmentation of the unified Georgian monarchy, the Mongols took control of the region, and with them came a new wave of Islamic influence. The Mongol rulers, though originally religiously eclectic, gradually converted to Islam and began promoting Islamic practices and governance. This phase saw increased interaction between Muslims and Christians in administrative and military affairs. Muslim soldiers and advisors were active in the courts of Mongol-appointed Georgian rulers. However, this period was also marked by political instability and economic decline, which hindered any significant Islamic consolidation. By the 15th century, the once powerful Georgian kingdom had fractured into smaller states, the kingdoms of Kartli, Kakheti, and Imereti, along with various principalities. These fractured entities became susceptible to the rising powers of the region, particularly the Ottoman Empire to the west and Safavid Persia to the east. Both these empires were Islamic and viewed Georgia as a critical frontier zone. From the 16th to 18th centuries, the Ottomans and Safavids engaged in a series of wars, treaties, and conquests that saw different parts of Georgia fall under alternating spheres of influence. The Ottomans promoted Sunni Islam, especially in western Georgia, while the Safavids, who were Shia, influenced eastern Georgia. In regions such as Adjara, Islam took deeper root. The process of Islamization in these regions was gradual and driven by a combination of forced conversions, economic incentives, and social integration. In Ottoman-controlled areas, conversion to Islam was often linked to tax relief, land grants, and administrative promotion. Over time, whole communities in Adjara and parts of Guria adopted Islam and became part of the broader Ottoman administrative and religious framework. The establishment of mosques, Islamic schools, madrasas, and Sufi brotherhoods facilitated the cultural assimilation of these populations. While Islam gained a foothold in parts of western Georgia, it never entirely supplanted the Christian identity of the majority of the population. The Georgian Orthodox Church remained a powerful institution, and many communities resisted religious conversion. However, the legacy of centuries of Muslim presence was unmistakable. Islamic art, architecture, and literature left their imprint on Georgian culture. In cities like Akholtsikhe and Batumi, Islamic monuments stood alongside Christian ones, and Islamic festivals and customs became part of local traditions. The 19th century brought a radical shift. The Russian Empire, pursuing its southern expansion, gradually annexed the Georgian territories. By the early 1800s, all of Georgia was under Russian control. The Russian authorities, being Orthodox Christians, were suspicious of Muslim communities, particularly those in border regions. Islamic institutions were subjected to greater scrutiny, and in some cases, repression. Many Georgian Muslims were encouraged or forced to emigrate, especially during the Russo-Turkish Wars. Waves of Muhajirs, Muslim emigrants, moved to the Ottoman Empire from Georgia, particularly from Adjara and Samtskhe Javakheti. This demographic shift reduced the Muslim population in Georgia significantly, though a substantial number remained. Despite the Russian imperialist policies, Georgian Muslims preserved their identity. They adapted to changing political circumstances while maintaining religious and cultural traditions. Under the Soviet regime, starting in the 1920s, religion in general faced severe repression.